All right, guys, welcome back to the Church Debater and Preacher Mike. Mike, what is going on?
It's all happening, man. It's all happening. We had a huge crowd this morning. We're coming back together. Beautiful day. Tournament time's coming up
It
in
is.
basketball.
It is.
Yeah.
There was a picture that popped up on my phone of from a year ago of Whitney's son, who is almost 2 now. I had him in my arms, and he'd stuck his head next to mine,
Ah,
and I remember thinking right after that, said the world changed right after that, and we didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to be, how long it was going to be before we head bonded like that
there
again.
you
I mean,
go.
you just never knew.
That's
You just
good.
never knew. All right, I got some good stuff for you today. I figured since we talked about marriage last week, which by the way looks like it's destined to be one of our top 5. So that's good. There's a lot of people that enjoyed that one.
I'm glad
Sometimes
they're
what we
I'm glad they
don't
want to I'm glad they want to hear something about marriage.
Yeah, really, really. They might just be reading to make fun of us. I don't
Oh,
know.
I could be,
Just
yeah.
reading to make fun of it. All right. I'm going to read some verses on a topic.
All right.
I might even paraphrase them because there's so many on this topic that I'm going to say them the way I remember them. And then you can correct me, or you can, let's see how good you are at coming up with the verses. Cause I just came up with the words from memory, and
Got it.
I don't know verses as well as you do.
All
All
right.
right. So our topic for today is going to be parenting.
Oh boy.
Why not start with marriage last week, go to parenting today?
It's a great idea. That's the proper order.
That is correct. Good job of getting that in there. All right. So the first verse meant you just read this for when I was young, people just read this verse and they did it. Now things have changed. So comment first of all on the verse, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Well, number one, it doesn't occur in text that way. Not exactly that
I
way.
told you I'm going to try to trip you up here.
Hey, you did a superb job. Now, it doesn't occur that way in text. However, the concept absolutely is there. And so the wise man would say in the Proverbs, his idea was, hey, if you don't use the rod, you're going to have a problem. So now, you know what? I'm sorry, but my camera just left you. I'm trying to find it. Am I still there?
You're still, everything's still good. I would continue. The
Okay,
fact that you can't
oh, there it is. I,
the fact that you can't see me is normally a good thing. So,
well, but here's the deal. I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at me. And so, I got to make sure that I'm looking all right.
yeah, we're doing humility next week.
That's what we're doing. That's right. So, so the
I think you're procrastinating is what I think.
no. Here we go.
All
I
right,
lost you.
all right.
I absolutely lost you.
All right.
So the idea is it actually says he who spares the rod does not love his son. Now,
That is true. That is true.
Interesting way to put it. Now, what is the rod? Well,
I think it was in the form of leather when I was young.
well, let's see. Yes, I would say leather is one. My dad even had, excuse me, he was a part of the Optimist Club. And he had a little bitty pin with a back on it that he put in one of his belt loop holes. And he took that thing off one time to get my brother. And he left the imprint of the Optimist Club on his leg. So, yeah, it was leather. So, but the idea is that he's not obviously talking about caning, which happens in these foreign countries. But what he is saying is that to discipline a child, even in in that way, is a proper thing to do. Now, I had someone tell me one time, I don't know the veracity of this, but it sounds like it might work. And his point was this: using a belt, make sure that I don't hurt the child too much. Because if I use my hand, it could very well be that the force of the hand is far worse than the force of a belt. That's a fascinating concept.
I won't
I can see
argue
it.
with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that Scripture actually teaches the fact that you should use a rod, if you will, for discipline. There's no doubt about that.
I would even, since you brought that up, I would even say that most of the time, if people are using their hand,
Mm-hmm.
they often are doing so out of anger.
Good point.
Rather than out of discipline.
Good point. Good point.
All right, let's try this one then, since you skirted past that one.
Got right on by.
Yep. Parents, and I'm paraphrasing again, parents, do not exasperate your child.
Once again, Ephesians chapter 6, you got that almost right. Because he actually says, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Exasperate is a great word. Why does he? One of the things that we might talk about sometime is he said, fathers don't do this, but it's okay for mothers to do it. Or sometimes in Scripture, he's addressing, like for instance, he'll say, men don't look at a woman to lust after her.
Right.
So it's okay for a woman to do that because it never says don't. Why does God then say it the way that he does? Well, fathers are the one most likely in anger to lash out at a child in that way. And furthermore, a father is supposed to be a leader and the one setting the pace. Fathers, while on the one hand, we've all picked at our children and it's fun and it's enjoyable. But really, I think what he's talking about there is intentionally poking in a way to upset and to, by that, show your authority. And this, I said it, therefore I don't ever have to give you a reason, is not always the best way to approach it because it teaches something you don't want to talk. Right. So I think that's what he's saying. Yeah, you don't want to create a scenario where intentionally or even unintentionally, you make the child worse from the discipline rather than better.
Right. And I agree with that last comment. Let me I'm not going to reword what you said, but let me mention something that I've heard about the word exasperate before.
Okay.
I heard another preacher describe it as, don't pick on your child over and over and over so much that you end up driving them away. Don't pick on them on every little thing they do, but encourage them instead.
Very good. Very good. Just hobby riding on top of them just all the time. A lot of times that's because the father is trying to prove that he has authority. If a father does it right, you don't have to prove anything.
Right.
Because they will follow.
Okay. All right. All right. Now I'm going to come back to some verses here in a moment, but I'm now going to quote you a line from a movie.
Oh.
I'm not going to tell you what the movie is yet. I want you to comment on it first.
Okay. All right.
And then I'll tell you whether it was one of the quote religious movies or where it was just a more of a secular movie. And you'll know when I tell you the name of the movie, how it was used in that movie. So here's the line.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't trust our children, how are they ever to become trustworthy?
Oh, I like the line. I love the line. Now, the comment that I would begin with is, it fits well with your topic because trust is not given, trust is earned. If you don't trust your child, it is because you're not giving them an opportunity to earn it.
I agree. Totally agree.
So if you give them opportunities to learn it, they learn how to be trusted, then they become trustworthy people. So I love the line. I love the thought behind it. That's really good.
So how much do you allow your child to do
Mhm.
before you cross that line? When do you
Mm.
when are you saying when are you telling them they can't do something too much because you don't trust them to make the right decisions? When can you say, all right, I'm going to loosen up a little bit. I'm going to assume they'll make the right decisions when they put themselves in this situation. Let's just use a party, for instance.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, do you trust them to go to a party?
Mhm. Well, let me back up and give you a generic thought. I wrote a small tract years ago. It was directed at the time at dating, but it fits all kinds of relationship situations.
Okay.
And the concept is there are three levels of things that you need to have in your life. There are the uncompromisables that just don't change.
Good.
There are the compromisables that you're willing to work with.
You're going to give us some examples, right?
I will.
All right.
And there are inconsequentials that just don't matter at all.
Okay.
And if you get any of those out of order, you get all messed up. So let's take the party. If you have decided that the party, and I would say that you and I would both fit this category pretty well, we would decide that the concept of a party is a compromisable. It just is. There are certain parties they're not going to go to. There are certain parties it's not a problem. The idea of a party is not the problem. So you're compromising in that area. But here's what's uncompromisable. It is uncompromisable, for instance, that I would let my child go to a party where I knew that alcohol was going to be there. That would be an uncompromisable for me. Some would say, well, let them go, but it's uncompromisable to let them drink.
Right.
Okay. That's how families can be different.
Right.
But I would say the way you figure that out is by knowing what your standards are. Uncompromisable versus compromisable. When you take an inconsequential, something doesn't matter at all, and you make it uncompromisable, life gets all mixed up.
That's then we get back to exasperation.
That's it. That's exactly where we are. You're exactly right. Now, what I also think is true, I think children not only need boundaries, they want boundaries. Now, they'll say everything in the world that they don't. I want to be free. I want to be independent. I want to do my own thing. The truth of the matter is, children don't really want that. They say it. But what they want is security. That's what they want.
Yes.
How do they get security if they don't know where the boundaries are? And so if they can find and know what the boundaries are, I tell parents and children two things. One, a parent's job is to set the boundaries, and a child's job is to test the boundaries.
Yes.
And if they test them and the boundaries keep moving, there's no security there. If
Right.
they test them and they remain true, then they know now how far they can extend themselves and they feel a whole lot better.
Right.
But they'll keep
Right.
testing them. We just have to hold firm. Unless it's compromisable, then you work with that child. It is in the area, I think, of compromisable that you put to test the trust they have learned through the uncompromisables.
Good. I like the way you said that. All right. And I'll go on comment as saying this. And I know my kids listen to watch this video. I've asked them, especially the boys. I don't want to be sexist here, but especially the boys, because it just seems like you ask boys this more often. I asked them, I said, did you all think we were strict with you growing up? And they told me no. But yet they ended up, they all three married somebody they met in the church. They go to church every week. They're bringing their own kids up in the church. So we at least rubbed off enough that even if they made mistakes like you and I did, they stayed with the church and knew that was important for their life.
Oh, I think that's a
Lives.
fantastic measuring stick. I have no problem with that at all. And I
Right.
listen to parents all the time whose children have left and are not faithful to the Lord. And they question themselves all the time. What did we do wrong? Well, how did we mess up? Well, I don't know. And it's not necessary that they did mess up, but I know
Right.
this: you can mess up by being way too strict, and you can mess up by being way too loose.
Yes, I agree. I agree. That leads perfectly. Your answer leads perfectly into the next verse I was going to bring up. And
Wait a
again,
minute.
I'm
Stop, stop.
paraphrasing.
Wait
What?
a minute. You're going too fast. You didn't
My
tell us the,
kids, my students say that all the time.
you didn't
Your
tell us the movie.
comment, what?
You didn't tell us the name of the movie.
Oh, I did. The movie was actually Footloose, believe it or not.
Okay. Now I get it. See, I
So
get
I
it.
tried to trick you with it a little bit because what the subject was there.
Oh, yeah, I
All
do.
right. So, and the preacher is the one that came to that conclusion. The
I
preacher
remember
that
that.
was played by, I've forgotten his name,
Oh,
John
it's
Lithgow. John
that's it.
Lithgow.
John Lithgow.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. The next one. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he gets old, he will not part from it. Now, I know I didn't quote that one exactly, but I could tell by the way you're shaking your head.
I knew it was coming.
Your comments led perfectly into that verse.
I knew it was coming, see, but I've been waiting. I thought it would
All
maybe
right.
be the very first one. So,
All right.
That goes back somewhat to my statement about how God writes things and why he writes it the way that he does. A lot of scripture is written in what we would call an ideal scenario. So, for instance, if ideal parents ideally implemented the ideas of God, they would raise ideal children.
That sounds impossible, Mike.
I know. That's the point. But I don't think it is to be understood as a firm rule. Obviously, if it were a firm rule, an axiom that cannot change,
it's not a guarantee.
A guarantee.
Right.
Then there's no free will with the child. You would have eliminated free will because you're just going to do what you're told. That can't be true. It also can't be true that there's no meaning to it. It's a pie in the sky theory that doesn't make any sense. God doesn't put those things in scripture. Therefore, the answer to me is more along the lines of understanding generic principles and concepts. And it really goes back to what you just said a minute ago. When have your children at every single stage of life done every single thing you wanted them to do after they left home?
Right.
No, none of us can say that.
Yeah.
But have they remained faithful to the concepts and the principles that you trained them? Absolutely true. And that's exactly how our family is. So I think he's giving parents hope, and he's giving them a challenge. If you really have intention and thought behind raising children, you will raise children who will be intentional in the future in their thoughts. And that's what we need to be concentrating on. Some parents never even think about how to raise a child. They just have a child and the child lives. You can't do that. You have to have a plan. The other day, Austin called me because he's having a problem. He has two boys and they love sweets, just love them. And so they'll eat a little bit of something and start asking for sweets. And he said, life is great as a parent if I didn't have to be concerned about the food thing all the time. So he wanted to know, did you always just let me eat whatever I wanted, candy and cookies? And I said, son, number one, all you ever did was eat. So you were always eating good stuff. So the other stuff, your son doesn't eat a lot of good stuff at times. That's where you're having the problem. And so he's talking about this idea of intentionality, and they're trying to make a plan. They're trying to figure out how we're going to deal with this kind of thing. And so he's want to know if we ever had to raise him. I said, well, we had some plans. Yeah. We didn't have an hour by hour description of everything we're going to do, but we had a generic plan. And right now they're following the generic plan. And that's all I think that text can be applied to.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I was going to
So
tell you this.
go ahead.
His son came in after having this battle with him over sweets,
And
and
you
his
gave
son
him a
Jared.
Milky Way. You gave him a Milky
No,
Way.
no, 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 no. Jared came in and he goes, Dad, I have decided why it is that grandparents will let us have anything they want when we are there. He goes, why is that, son? He said, because grandparents want their house to be fun.
That's exactly true. There's no doubt.
No
I
doubt.
think so far all of our grandkids are probably going to get their first piece of candy and their first drink of soda at the grandparents' house.
And that's how it ought to be.
All right, let me mention something related to that. I did a little research on Sunday morning Bible school.
Okay.
It looks like it first originated in England in the 18th century, but really didn't get popular in the United States till about 1930.
That's right.
And one article I read about it said the reason it kind of took off then is because parents weren't doing as good a job at teaching the Bible in the home to their kids. So the churches decided to supplement it in the building. Have you ever heard anything like that before?
Yes.
Okay.
I have. And I think that's a sad commentary.
Yeah, it is.
At the same time, it's probably somewhat of an accurate commentary. Also, I would say that doesn't make the idea of a Bible class a bad deal. That's a good thing. There's value in learning in a group with other kids than simply learning at home on your own. The downside would be if parents say, I don't have to teach them because they're going to get it in Bible class anyway.
Right, right.
That would be bad. But if you combine what parents do at home with what the kids are learning in Bible class, now you got a powerful, you have a powerful group or team effort really helping to raise those kids.
Right, right. I think it's crazy that it actually took 1,800 years.
Isn't that something?
To for that to develop.
Yeah.
All right. Some general comments. What does the Bible say about parents that are so busy they don't have enough time for their kids, or about parents who force is the wrong word, require their kids to participate in activities that maybe the kids don't want to be involved with? And I'm thinking sports right off, but it could be anything because maybe the parents were good at that, so they think their children should be too. Well, does the Bible address those two topics at all?
I think the Bible addresses it in generics for sure. Both of those situations that you described could have a common denominator in the concept of selfishness, because when people get married and they have family, they cannot be selfish people. They just can't. I know, and I remember well when I was first married for the year or two or three, I didn't change much from my single days, and it was causing some trouble at home. I had to learn I'm married, and it took a little while. So when you have children, you can't just continue. Before I began dating and ended up marrying the woman I have, I was with another lady, and she and I dated for a long time, and we broke up because one of the things that broke us up was I really wanted to be married to a woman who would be at home when our children were young before they went to school.
Oh, okay.
And she just couldn't do it. Just could not do it. Didn't want to do it. She wasn't wrong. It just wasn't one of those things I was willing to compromise.
Okay.
So that was our plan, and we were able to do that. And then when they went to school, she got a job teaching. So it's a part of being selfless as a parent when you have a child. And a child is not somehow your way of being able to live your life through them. That's not what children are all about. Some
Right,
parents
right,
do that. They relive their childhood through their children by having them do things they don't want to do.
right.
There is a balance there, because there are a lot of things that children need experience doing, but they don't want to do. And one of the ways that I see this more than any, that I think is extremely, as it relates to us as far as the church is concerned, it really bothers me with parents who let the children make decisions about spiritual things.
Okay.
Are we going to go to Bible class? Do you want to go or not? No, I don't want to go. Okay, that's fine. There's a youth activity. Do you want to go? No, I really don't. Okay, that's fine. Parents who say, oh no, there's some uncompromisable things here. You're going. You're going to be a part. Now, you may not like that event, and you learn by not liking that event. You don't go to the next one. But there are others that you will like, and therefore you're going to go until you figure that out. It's amazing to me how many intentional lessons that parents teach in a secular way and don't do the same concept in a spiritual way.
Right, right.
For instance, how many parents are constantly doing things like, oh, you're going to taste this food. And if you don't like it, that's one thing, but you're going to taste it, because you're not going to just eat hot dogs the rest of your life.
Or Taco Bell.
Or Taco Bell's a different story, because they have a good menu. So I think if parents are intentional in trying to get their children to have a wide variety, or a wider variety of food, why are they not willing to say, oh, you're going to try this youth event because it's a youth event?
Good point.
I think those kinds of things. Would children ever brush their teeth if they were not told to? I'm going to say no on that. But we don't say, do you want to brush your teeth today? No. Okay, that's fine. But we do it on spiritual things. Do you want to read your Bible tonight? Read a verse or two? No. Okay, fine. Doesn't make any sense to me, and that really bothers me.
All right, all right. Let's close with this. We're going to flip it around on the kids a little bit.
Ooh.
Look what a list we have here in 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5, and listen at what's included. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. Peoples will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power, have nothing to do with such people. What the point I want to make is all that terrible list, and there's disobedience to parents right in the middle of it.
Yep.
What make any kind of comment you want to on that?
Be thankful.
Maybe there's none to be made. Maybe there's none to be made.
Be thankful that you don't live under the Mosaic law. Because a child who disobeyed a parent could be stoned by the community.
Oh man. All right.
In fact, it says we've tried to help this child, and the child refuses, and we've done this and we've done that. And if it still is the case that this child is rebellious to the parents, you take that child out and stone them. Be thankful, disobedient children, that you don't live under the Mosaic law. So, but why is it that he would put that in the midst of the list of things that we would say are so immoral and antisocial? It's because if you lose the children in the home, you're going to lose your society.
Right.
That's where home is the most valuable place to train people to live in a society. And if you can't do that, you're going to be anti-society, anti-social. You're going to raise children who are in prison. That's what's going to happen.
All right. Are we off the hook as children when we get married?
Yes.
Okay. So we no longer have to obey our parents because we're married.
But no, they have to obey us now. Because...
All right. All right. That was good. Time went by fast. Leave us with your profound thought of the week.
Profound thought of the week. Well, my profound thought of the week is, again, like I've been thinking about today, the term that we've heard for the past year, oh, they're just a bunch of sheep. One side of the political curtain says it to this one, and that one says it to this one. Sheep have become such a negative thing to be a sheep. And yet that's exactly what Jesus said his children are. They are sheep. There are reasons for that. I want to encourage every single person to be a sheep. That's where the abundant life is. Not the sheep as defined politically, but the sheep is defined by the shepherd Jesus.
Yeah. I'm convinced God created sheep just so we could get the Bible lessons from them. What do you think?
I hadn't thought about that. That's pretty good.
All right, guys, we are out of here. That's this week's Church Debater and Preacher Mike. Please leave us comments on our Facebook page or just comment to the YouTube video. Say goodbye, Mike.
Goodbye, Mike.
See you later.